Climate change is one of the most important challenges we face as a species, and limiting greenhouse gas emissions is essential in reducing the impacts our planet receives. In the TESS research project, we've explored the potential role that grassroots initiatives, also known as community-based initiatives, or just CBIs, may have in this transition towards a low-carbon society. As part of this project, we've developed the Track It tool, which attempts to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions that are effectively reduced through your sustainability initiatives. So I will run you through the general methodology and the main features of this tool. How does the tool work? First important consideration to take into account is that we are not providing a carbon footprint of your organization or initiative. We're not providing total emissions that are emitted through your activity, but we're producing the emissions that are avoided. So, for instance, your initiative is producing a certain amount of goods and services, and this is compared to the same amount of goods and services provided by a baseline scenario, which is defined as how society is currently producing these goods and services. So it's this difference in emissions between a baseline scenario and your initiative which we are providing in this tool. I will now present the main activities which we cover. Through the TESS project, we identified 8 of them as being relevant for CBIs. In the transport domain, we have transportation of goods, specifically of lightweight goods. So typically we find courier services run by bikes or electric cars. We have CBIs promoting changes in personal transportation, recycling of different materials, specifically of aluminium, batteries, glass, paper, and plastics. In the food domain, we have CBIs growing or selling organic food, avoiding food waste, which both at the supermarket level and at the household level, and preparing meals. This last activity refers to CBIs who are promoting changes in dietary habits towards a lower presence of animal-based products in our diets. And finally, in the energy domain, we have the generation of heat and electricity through renewable sources. So now that we've presented the activities covered in the tool, we can provide an example through which we can explain the further steps. So we have on the right side we have information icons, which in this case are describing each of the activities. In other steps of the tool, sometimes it provides clarification if it's a carbon accounting concept or where the data sources are found, etc. So now we're ready to proceed. Let's assume our imaginary CBI is growing organic food for the local community, and we also have some solar panels through which we feed electricity into the grid. So we're ready to proceed after selecting both activities, and we get to the step number 2, which is providing the entry activity data. We suppose our initiative is in Germany. For the year 2014 we have our data, and we produced, okay, this is a simplified example, but we produced 200 kilograms of fruits and 3,000 kilograms of vegetables. We used an average van run by petrol, which did 700 kilometers in 1 year. This transportation refers only to the transport that occurs from farm gate to the market. It doesn't include transportation of like fertilizers, for example. All the transportation before farm gate is already included when we enter the data here, and delivery services transport is not included in the tool. For the second activity, generation of electricity, we said we were doing solar panels, so solar energy. Suppose we do 8,000 kilowatts hour per year, which is a relatively small installation. So we're now ready to calculate, and we get to the third step where we present the results. In the first part, we have the total emissions that have been avoided by the initiative, so the combination of both activities, which is roughly 4,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. In this case, the information icon is describing what this concept means. These 4,000 are disaggregated between both activities. Growing or selling organic food accounts for 650 kilograms, and the rest is for generation of electricity. We have a second indicator, which is a relative indicator. It describes the percentage reduction from the baseline scenario, which is then presented in this graph. So the baseline is in red, and in blue is the emissions of your initiative, and the reduction in green. It's a descriptive indicator. On the right hand side, we have the definition of the description of the baseline scenario. So how was it compared to this scenario? Here we have some of the emission factors and where the data sources that were used for the calculation. Since this number, 4,000 kilograms of CO2, might not be intuitive, we translate it by considering the average European footprint. So these 4,000 kilograms, it turns out to be what an average European citizen emits in a year, or what 18,000 kilometers driven by a car. In the last section of the results page, we compare the results of your initiative to the average performing community-based initiative in our test case studies. So in blue is the data we just entered and the results produced, and green is the average of our test case studies. So the top refers to the growing organic food, and the bottom one is the energy example. On the left side, we have the comparison of the relative indicator, so the percentage that's been reduced from the baseline. And on the right side, we have a efficiency indicator. So for the food, it's the amount of kilograms of CO2 that are reduced per kilogram of food produced. This is relevant because it'll change depending on what type of product we produce. It'll have larger or smaller differences when comparing like a conventional production with organic production. Similarly, for the generation of electricity, this kilograms of CO2 are presented in relation to kilowatt hour produced. Here we have an option of actually going into the document and analyzing these test case studies. In some cases, this might be useful to compare with your initiative and see where these differences are found. Another feature of the tool, in every step we have a FAQ section, which gives some general information. For example, who can use this tool, to what CBS is it targeting. Also, sometimes carbon accounting concepts, climate change related concepts, etc. Also, in some of these information icons, we can access the tool documentation, which describes for each of the activities how the baseline scenarios are defined and the data sources that are used. And then the final feature is we can actually generate a PDF with the results. We enter the name of your initiative and we can download a PDF, which we can then use for personal use. So these are the main features of the tool, which was developed by the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. Thank you very much for watching. We hope this tool is useful for your organization. Going back and forth and introducing different quantities and different types of products in each of the activities, it can be especially useful, especially since it can spark some reflection as to where your organization can improve its efficiency in continuing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So thank you very much once again.